She didn't come to kill me. The alien wanted my body. Instead, Samuel never believed the stories. Bright lights in the sky, creatures with silver eyes, whispered tales of abductions. Those belonged in late-night radio shows and dusty paperbacks, not in the quiet, uneventful life of a man who worked 9 to 5 and came home to silence. But that night, silence itself betrayed him. It began as a low hum, a vibration that rattled the glass of his bedroom window. He thought at first it was a storm rolling across the horizon, until the light came. Not the yellow wash of lightning, not the soft spill of street lamps, but a pale, unnatural glow that seeped through the curtains like liquid silver. Samuel sat up, heart thundering in his chest. Every hair on his arm stood upright. He wanted to dismiss it, to tell himself it was headlights from a passing car, but the glow didn't fade, it grew stronger. He swallowed, throat dry, and reached for the lamp beside his bed. The bulb flickered, then died. That was when he saw her. A shape moved within the radiance, tall and fluid, stepping forward until the light seemed to pour off her skin itself. She was not human, yet she was not monstrous. Her figure was slender, sculpted like an artist's dream, but her presence carried weight, power, something unearthly. Her eyes. They were not eyes at all, but deep orbs of shifting color, like galaxies in constant motion. Samuel couldn't breathe. He couldn't think. Instinct told him this was the end. He had heard of hunters in the wild who froze when the predator finally appeared. He understood them now. His body refused to move. The figure approached. The glow dimmed enough for him to see more clearly. Smooth skin tinted with silver, features sharp and flawless, hair like strands of liquid shadow cascading past her shoulders. She was beauty and terror fused together, and she had come for him. Samuel opened his mouth, but no words escaped. His tongue felt heavy, useless. He wanted to scream, to run, but he remained captive in his own body, pinned by her gaze. Then she spoke. Not in English, not in any language he recognized, yet the meaning carved itself into his mind as though her thoughts reached directly into his skull. A single word, a name. Samuel. The sound of it shattered him. She knew who he was. Out of all the billions on earth, she had come for him. His heart skipped, terror colliding with disbelief. How do you know me? His own voice cracked, trembling. Her lips parted. This time the words came smoother, clearer, as if her tongue adjusted to human speech. I have watched you. Samuel's skin turned cold. Watched him. For how long? Why? The thought that this being had peered into his life, into the moments he thought private, nights of loneliness, mornings of routine, made his stomach twist. He clenched his fists. If you've come to kill me, do it. Don't play games. The alien woman tilted her head, studying him with an expression unreadable. Then, to his astonishment, she stepped closer, not with the hunger of a predator, but with something far stranger. Her eyes softened. She lowered her hand, reaching out as though to touch him, but stopped just before her skin brushed his. I did not come to kill you, she whispered. Samuel's blood ran cold. His chest tightened. If not to kill, then why? She leaned nearer, and the light around her pulsed like a heartbeat. Her final words that night would echo in his mind forever. I came for your body, but not in the way you think. Samuel's breath came in shallow bursts. His body screamed at him to run, to hurl himself through the door or out the window if he had to, but his legs refused to obey. Something stronger than fear bound him there, an almost magnetic pull to the figure who called herself Seven. Her gaze lingered on him with an intensity that felt unbearable, as if she were peeling back the layers of his soul, stripping away every secret he had hidden from the world. He had never felt so exposed, not even in moments of vulnerability with another human being. This was different, terrifyingly different. You, his voice cracked. You've been watching me? Seven's head tilted, a gesture both alien and strangely graceful. Her lips curved slightly, not quite a smile, but something that suggested recognition. Not watching, she said, her words now smoother, her tone softer. Studying. The word sliced into Samuel's mind. Studying. As if he were no more than an insect pinned beneath glass. He clenched his fists to steady himself, but his fingers trembled regardless. Why? He demanded, though the question came out more desperate than defiant. Her answer was instant, without hesitation. Your life was chosen. A cold shiver rippled down Samuel's spine. Chosen. He didn't know what that meant, but it carried the weight of finality. He swallowed hard, trying to keep his voice steady. Chosen? For what? Seven took one step closer. The glow around her dimmed, almost as though she willed it so he could see her more clearly. Her face, her body, her presence. She was terrifying, yes, but in a way that defied simple fear. She was beautiful in her strangeness, hypnotic in the way she moved. My people harvest energy, she said. Life is not only flesh. It is current, pulse, power. Yours was marked to be taken. Her words slammed into him like ice water. He was supposed to die. That had been the mission all along. His heartbeat thundered in his ears, the sound so loud he thought it might betray his terror. And yet, her voice lowered, soft as silk, almost uncertain. I could not. Samuel's throat tightened. He tried to speak, but the words tangled in his mouth. He forced them out anyway, ragged and weak. Why not? For the first time, Seven looked away. Her gaze shifted toward the window, toward the night sky where faint traces of starlight shimmered beyond the unnatural glow. Silence stretched between them, heavy, charged. When she finally spoke again, her voice carried something new, something Samuel would have sworn was conflict. I do not understand it, she admitted. I have never felt it before. You are flawed, fragile. You live in noise, in shadows of regret. And yet, her eyes locked back on him, burning with something he couldn't name. I am drawn. Samuel's pulse quickened. The room suddenly felt smaller, the air tighter, as if he were suffocating under the weight of her confession. This wasn't a predator stalking its prey. This was something else entirely, something far more dangerous. You're saying, his voice cracked, disbelief dripping from every syllable. You were sent here to kill me, but you didn't, because you feel something? Seven studied him carefully as though measuring every flicker of expression across his face. Your loneliness, she said quietly. I felt it before I even stepped into this room. It called to me, a void mirroring my own. The words struck deep because they were true. Samuel had lived years swallowed by silence, coming home to empty rooms, eating dinner alone, staring at a phone that rarely rang. He had buried that ache beneath routines and excuses, but now it stood naked before him, reflected in the eyes of a being who should have been his executioner. For the first time since her arrival, he no longer felt the suffocating grip of terror. Instead, something else seeped in, a trembling fascination, a reluctant recognition. Seven was not just a visitor, not just a monster cloaked in beauty. She was conflicted. Samuel's mind spun with questions, but one thought rooted itself above all the rest. If an alien designed to kill could choose not to, if she could feel something other than obedience, then maybe, just maybe, she was more human than she realized. And that possibility was more terrifying than death itself. The nights that followed were never the same. Samuel thought she would vanish after that first encounter, disappearing into whatever hidden world she came from, leaving only the memory of terror and the echo of her strange confession. But she returned, always at night, always when the world outside had gone still, and the hum of the city had quieted to silence. Sometimes he would wake to the soft shimmer of silver light seeping through his walls. Other times, she would simply be there, standing in the corner of his room as if she had always belonged, watching him with those shifting eyes that seemed to hold galaxies inside them. At first, Samuel couldn't decide which feeling consumed him more, fear or fascination. She was alien, a being of power and mystery, someone who had admitted her mission was to drain the life from his body. And yet, with each night that passed, his fear thinned, replaced by something far more complicated. Curiosity, longing, a hunger for answers that only she could give. Their conversations began awkward, stilted. He asked questions. Too many, too fast. She would answer with short phrases, her words carefully chosen, as if each one cost her something. But over time her voice softened, and her sentences stretched longer. She spoke of her world not in detail, but in glimpses, towering spires of crystal where her people lived, endless skies without stars, oceans that glowed from within. It sounds, Samuel paused, trying to find the word. Lonely. Seven tilted her head, considering. It is complete. No hunger, no weakness, no longing. But there is silence, a silence deeper than this world understands. Samuel thought about his own life. The silence that greeted him every evening when he opened the door to his apartment, the quiet meals, the empty chair across from him. And for the first time he felt something strange. He pitied her. One night, as rain pattered softly against the window, he asked her a question that had been gnawing at him since the beginning. Why me? Out of everyone on earth, why did you choose not to kill me? Her eyes glowed faintly in the dim light, and she studied him with that unreadable expression of hers. Because you remind me of something my kind has forgotten. Samuel frowned. And what's that? Seven hesitated. For a long moment, he thought she wouldn't answer at all. Then in a whisper that barely filled the space between them, she said, connection. The word lodged itself in his chest. He couldn't shake it. Each night after that, their conversations grew deeper. She asked him questions too, questions that made him uncomfortable, questions no one had ever asked him before. Why do you humans hurt each other when you crave togetherness? She asked once, her voice genuinely curious. Samuel had no answer. He tried to explain jealousy, greed, fear, the messy tangle of human emotions, but Seven only shook her head, unsatisfied. Another time she asked, why do you mourn? If everything ends, why resist the ending? Because endings matter, he told her, because love makes the loss unbearable. That was when she gave him a look unlike any she had shown before, a look almost tender. Love, she repeated softly as though testing the weight of the word. And that was the night Samuel realized the truth. She had no idea what love was. She confessed it later without shame, but with a strange curiosity. Her people had no concept of intimacy, no hunger for closeness, no word for longing. They existed in unity, connected in purpose, but without the fire that made humans ache for each other. To us, Seven said, love is an error, an inefficiency, a weakness of biology. She paused, her gaze piercing him. Yet when you speak of it, your heart shifts. It beats differently. Why? Samuel didn't know how to answer, not in words, and maybe that was the moment he began to teach her, not with explanations, but with presence. It was in the way he held her gaze when she asked questions, in the way his voice softened when she admitted her confusion, in the way his hand trembled the first time it brushed against hers, only for her not to pull away. Their bond deepened, subtle and undeniable. Samuel began to notice the small changes in her, the way her glow softened around him, as if her body itself dimmed to make him comfortable. The way her speech grew smoother, her words less fractured, almost as though she wanted to sound more human. And the way her eyes, those impossible cosmic eyes, lingered on him longer than before. But Seven never let him forget the danger. One night when the air was heavy with summer heat, she stood at his window, her body shimmering against the night sky. If they discover this, she said, her voice low, urgent, both of us will be erased. Samuel's chest tightened. Then why come back at all? Why risk it? Seven turned to him, her expression unreadable, her gaze like fire and starlight all at once. Because I cannot stay away. The words sent a shiver down Samuel's spine. He wanted to speak, to tell her what her presence meant to him, how she had filled a void he hadn't even realized was swallowing him whole. But the words stuck. Instead, he simply stepped closer until the distance between them was a breath. She didn't move, didn't retreat. In that moment, the room was electric. The tension between them was no longer fear, no longer curiosity. It was something neither of them had words for. Samuel realized that he was teaching her, not through explanations, but through the unspoken language of closeness. She had never known intimacy, but she was beginning to feel it. And he was beginning to fall. Still in the back of his mind, danger loomed like a shadow. Seven's warning rang with truth. If her people discovered their bond, it wouldn't just be forbidden, it would be fatal. But standing there with her eyes locked on his, and her presence filling the room with warmth and light, Samuel realized something else. Some things were worth the risk. For weeks, Samuel had lived with the quiet terror that every night spent with Seven might be the last. She had warned him again and again. Her people would not tolerate what they would call weakness. They would sense her hesitation eventually. They would come. And when they came, it was not with whispers, but with thunder. It was near midnight when the air in Samuel's apartment shifted, the pressure dropping so sharply that his ears popped. The lights in the building flickered, then died all at once, plunging the world into suffocating darkness. Samuel jolted upright in bed, his chest pounding. He didn't need to see them to know. They were here. The glow came next, not Seven's soft silver light that warmed the room, but a harsh, sterile brilliance that carved the shadows into rigid lines. Figures emerged within it, taller than Seven, their bodies sharper, less human in every detail. Their eyes burned like twin suns, cold and merciless. Samuel's throat went dry. His instincts screamed at him to run, but his body rooted itself to the floor. There were 3 of them, each radiating authority and violence. One of them spoke, its voice echoing in Samuel's skull rather than his ears. Seven. She appeared between them and Samuel, her form shimmering as if woven from the very light they brought with them. Her posture was rigid, her chin lifted, but Samuel could see the faint tremor in her hands. "You have delayed your duty long enough," the voice continued. "The human is marked. Drain him. Complete the extraction." Samuel's stomach twisted violently. So this was it, the end she had warned him about. His hands curled into fists at his sides, and though every instinct screamed that he should beg for his life, plead, or fight, he found himself strangely calm. Perhaps it was because he had already accepted it the first night she came. Perhaps it was because Seven was standing in front of him now, her body forming a barrier between him and the beings who had come to erase him. "Do it!" the voice pressed, sharper this time, "or you will share his fate." Seven didn't move. "Seven!" Samuel whispered, his voice hoarse. He wanted to tell her it was all right, that he understood, that she shouldn't throw away her life for him. But the words caught in his throat. Her shoulders rose with a steady breath. When she finally spoke, her voice was low but steady. "No." The room seemed to shake with the weight of that single word. The beings tilted their heads in unison, their glowing eyes narrowing as though they couldn't comprehend her defiance. "You would betray your own kind?" the voice thundered. Seven's glow brightened, wrapping her form in a halo of defiance. "I would protect what I choose." Samuel felt his chest tighten, his heart pounding so hard it hurt. Protect, not destroy, not obey. Protect. The nearest being stepped forward, its presence suffocating as though the very air recoiled from its existence. It raised an arm, and Samuel felt his body seize, pinned in place by invisible force. Pain spread through him, sharp and hot, like his veins were on fire. He gasped, collapsing to his knees. "Samuel!" Seven's voice cracked for the first time. She moved instinctively, her body shielding his. The pressure vanished the moment she touched him, and air flooded back into his lungs. Samuel coughed violently, his body shaking, but he forced his gaze upward. Seven's stance had shifted, no longer defensive, but fierce, protective. "You will not touch him," she said, her voice ringing with a power Samuel had never heard before. The other being's light intensified, filling the room with blinding brilliance. Samuel raised an arm to shield his eyes, but through the glare he saw Seven plant her feet firmly, her body like a wall between him and them. "You shame us," the voice hissed. "This human infects you with weakness. You are bound to a species unworthy of survival." Seven's reply was immediate. "It is not weakness." Her voice shook now, not from fear, but from something deeper. "It is choice. It is connection. And it is mine." The air pulsed, vibrating with tension. Samuel could feel it in his bones. They would kill her. They would kill both of them. He wanted to shout, to protest, to beg her not to do this. But before he could form the words, the room erupted. One of the beings lunged, its light twisting into a spear of energy aimed straight at Samuel. He froze, certain that this was the end, until Seven moved. In a blur, she raised her arm, and the glow of her body flared brighter than ever before. The spear met her light and shattered, fragments scattering across the room like dying stars. The force of the clash threw her backward, but she caught herself, standing firm. Samuel's chest ached as he watched her. She was risking everything, her life, her place among her people, for him, and in that instant he understood. Seven had already chosen. The standoff stretched on, the room thick with silence, broken only by Samuel's ragged breathing. The beings seemed to hesitate, their eyes blazing with fury, but Seven did not falter. She stood tall, her arms slightly spread, as if daring them to come closer. "If you erase him," she said, "you erase me too." "That is my vow," Samuel's heart clenched. He wanted to tell her not to say it, not to seal her fate with such defiance. But another part of him swelled with something fierce, something terrifyingly close to pride. For a long, terrible moment, the beings did not move. Then slowly they drew back, their lights dimmed, their forms flickering like dying flames. One by one, they stepped backward into the glow that had birthed them, until only one remained. "This choice will destroy you," it said, its voice colder than ice. "Perhaps," Seven replied softly, "but it is mine." And then they were gone. The room fell into silence, the glow vanishing, as if it had never existed. Samuel collapsed against the wall, his body shaking, his lungs burning as he dragged in air. He looked up at Seven, who stood trembling, her glow flickering faintly like a candle in the wind. "Seven!" His voice was a broken whisper. She turned to him, and for the first time since they met, her expression cracked. Not the unreadable mask she wore, not the otherworldly calm, but something raw, something human. "They will come again," she whispered, "and next time, I may not be able to stop them." Samuel reached out, his hand shaking as it brushed against hers. For once, she didn't hesitate, their fingers intertwined, fragile and real. "Then we'll face it together," he said. And for the first time, Seven allowed herself the smallest of smiles. The silence that followed the confrontation was almost unbearable. Samuel sat on the edge of his bed, his hands trembling, and watched as Seven hovered in the center of the room. The soft silver glow that had become her signature shimmer now pulsed weakly, irregularly, as if each beat carried both exhaustion and sorrow. She had won, yes. She had defied her own kind, shielded him, chosen him over her people. But the victory was hollow. The consequences were inevitable. Samuel could feel it in the air, like a storm just beyond the horizon, inevitable, unrelenting. "They will not forgive this," Seven whispered, her voice trembling but resolute. "Their patience is not infinite. I must leave." The words struck Samuel like a physical blow. Leave? After everything, after the nights, the conversations, the bond that had grown so dangerously close. She was going to vanish, and there was nothing he could do to stop it. "Seven, wait," he said, rising to his feet, his voice raw. "Please, I don't understand." "Why can't you stay?" She shook her head slowly, her luminous eyes reflecting both regret and necessity. "If I remain, they will hunt us both. I cannot risk your life again, Samuel, not when my presence alone draws them closer." He felt the room shrink around him. The quiet apartment that had once been his sanctuary now felt empty, barren, as if her absence had already begun to consume it. His chest ached with the weight of loss he hadn't anticipated, the grief of knowing he would never see her in the same way again. "Will you come back?" he asked, almost in a whisper, a tremor in his voice betraying the fear he barely admitted to himself. Seven's eyes softened, and for the first time, her otherworldly poise cracked to reveal something almost fragile, vulnerable. "I cannot promise that," she said, "but a part of me will always remain with you." She lifted a hand, her glow intensifying for a brief moment. A pulse of light surged from her body and coursed through Samuel like a river of fire and ice. He staggered backward, shielding his eyes, and felt a warmth settle deep within him. It wasn't merely heat, it was energy, a spark, a tether, something that marked him irrevocably. When the light faded, she was still there, but diminished, fragile, like a candle in the wind. Samuel reached for her, desperate to hold on to anything tangible, anything real, but she pulled back just enough to maintain the impossible boundary that separated them now. This mark, he murmured, touching his chest where the sensation lingered, subtle yet undeniable. It's you. You're inside me. Seven's lips curved faintly. It is not all of me, she said, but it is enough to remember, enough to survive. Samuel's mind reeled, stronger yet vulnerable, haunted yet alive. She had left a piece of herself within him, and he could feel its presence, faint but undeniable, like a pulse beneath his skin. His heartbeat seemed different now, heightened, sharper, more alive. Every breath carried the memory of her. Every glance at the empty walls reminded him that she had been here, that she had chosen him in a way no one else ever could. I don't want you to go, he admitted, his voice breaking. I can't. Seven's gaze softened further, but there was no hesitation. I must, she said simply. It is the only way you survive. Her glow began to fade, dimming steadily until she became almost transparent, a shimmering outline against the darkness of his room. Samuel reached for her one last time, fingers brushing through air, grasping nothing but the echo of her presence. And then she was gone. The apartment felt impossibly still. The silence was no longer just quiet. It was hollow, echoing, filled with the absence of her light, her warmth, her energy. Samuel sank to the floor, leaning against the wall, his body trembling, his chest aching. For a moment, he felt utterly alone. But then he felt it, the faint pulse beneath his skin, the energy she had left behind, a tether that connected him to her across impossible distances. Days passed, and Samuel's world shifted. The mark within him was not simply a memory, it was transformation. He felt stronger, sharper, more attuned to the world around him. Days passed, and Samuel's world shifted. The mark within him was not simply a memory, it was transformation. He felt stronger, sharper, more attuned to the world around him. Sounds were clearer, colors brighter. Even the rhythm of the city seemed alive with a new vitality he hadn't noticed before. Yet the energy carried a price. He was haunted. Sometimes in the quiet moments, he would see a shimmer of silver light at the corner of his vision, fleeting and impossible. Sometimes he felt her presence like a whisper on his skin, a reminder of the nights they had shared, of the bond that had been forged in fire and fear. He walked through his days differently now. People noticed it. The way his gaze lingered on small details, the way he moved through space as if attuned to some hidden rhythm. He knew it was Seven, the part of her that remained inside him, guiding him, connecting him to something far beyond human comprehension. And yet, no matter how strong he became, no matter how alive he felt, he could not escape the ache in his chest. The longing for her presence, the weight of her absence, it was a constant companion. He carried it silently, in every breath, in every heartbeat. At night, he would step onto his balcony, looking up at the stars. The sky stretched endlessly above him, indifferent, yet somehow familiar. He whispered her name into the darkness, a fragile hope carried on his voice. Seven. The wind seemed to answer, brushing against his skin like a fleeting caress. A reminder that she had been here, that she had chosen him, that she had left a piece of herself inside him. He didn't know if she would return. Perhaps she never would. Perhaps the universe was too vast, the distance between worlds too great. But he could feel her, always. Somewhere in some way, she was still part of him. And in that truth, he found both solace and torment. She had changed him, altered the very core of his being, and he could never be the same again. The bond they had forged could not be erased, could not be broken, not by time, not by distance, not by the threats of her people. He closed his eyes, letting the quiet pulse of her energy settle within him, and whispered once more, with all the longing and fear that had taken root in his heart. She didn't come to kill me. 7 came to claim something far more dangerous, my heart. The stars stretched on endlessly above, indifferent, eternal, and Samuel understood that some connections were never meant to end.